welcome back to Food Prep Guide. We have a little bit of a different kind of video for you today. I want to talk about habits. One thing that we have probably gotten the most feedback about as far as what are your struggles with getting into this lifestyle of homemade and homegrown and home preserved, what's stopping you from growing that garden? What's stopping you from canning those vegetables? What are those obstacles? What are those hindrances? And I think one of the probably universal obstacles is time. It doesn't matter what walk of life you come from, whether you are a single mom, whether you are a full-time working person, whether you work from home, whether you homeschool, whether you send your kids to school, whether you have two incomes that are high, whether you are low income. It doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. This issue of time and this sense of lack of time, I think, is shared by all of us. And it's like Stacy always says, we all have 24 hours in a day. How does it feel like some people have more than 24 hours in a day, and some people, can get just so much done in a day, and here I am struggling to get one thing knocked off of my to-do list. And I think a lot of the success of maximizing our time comes down to habits. When we break down the success that we want to see into steps, I think those steps are habits, and when we create those habits and we act upon those habits and we stack those habits, that's when we start seeing the results that we really want. So I want to specifically talk today about 5 habits that seem to have helped me personally to be able to really make progress in the lifestyle that I personally want. Now, I know the lifestyle that I want is not the lifestyle for everybody, of course not, but if you're watching this channel, you at least have some sort of interest in making more things homemade, of growing more of your own food, of learning those lost and dying skills of food preservation, canning, fermenting, dehydrating, sourdough making. I mean, if you're watching this channel, you at least have some interest in those things. So whether you want this full-blown lifestyle or not, I think these habits might be helpful to you, and I think they're habits that can be customized and tweaked to fit your lifestyle. So today I want to specifically address like homestead kitchen type habits, things that help me to make more things homemade, and things that kind of keep me on track of moving that direction of this is the lifestyle I want, of like a slower, simple paced living, more homemade, less dependent on the grocery store, and that kind of thing. So I hope that interests you. Please stay tuned, and please let us know in the comments if this type of content, this type of just me and you talking and chatting, and I know you're not able to talk to me back, but I kind of feel like, if we could sit on a porch with some sweet tea, we could glean some ideas from each other, and that's kind of what I'm hoping this video is going to be. It's just some gleaning some ideas from that you can take with and run with and see success with. If that's something that interests you, please let us know down in the comments. We don't want to bore you with any content that you are not interested in, so let us know. But let's jump right into it. Welcome to Food Prep Guide. My name is Jordan. I'm a homeschooling mom to 3, living on 3 beautiful acres with my wonderful husband. A health crisis forced our family to change the way we think about food. Unfortunately, it also put us in financial hardship. Thankfully, the solution to both challenges was the same: to live off the land as much as possible. For us, that means growing a garden, preserving the harvest, raising chickens, and cooking from scratch. It's definitely a family affair. And friends, too. Meet Stacy. Researcher, author, and lifelong learner, she entered the world of food preservation in the crazy days of 2020. She joined a gleaning co-op, and a local grocer offered her clearance produce in bulk, and so the adventure began. Together, we're reclaiming the old ways of food stewardship and teaching them to the next generation. If there's one thing you should know about us, it's that we love Jesus and seek to steward his blessings wisely. Our table always has room for one more, so y'all come join us. Habit number 1, I'm going to be using canning dried beans as an example of this particular habit, but the umbrella habit, the more encompassing habit would be working in batches. Batch work has completely changed the way that I run my kitchen, the way that we run our home. My brain just personally does better when I can focus on one thing and really produce a lot of results in a smaller amount of time because I'm able to focus. And I have tried, I know that not everything in life can be batch prepped. I've had people lovingly poke fun, you know, you'd batch prep everything, or you'd batch everything if you could. Well, you're right, I would if I could. And a lot of things can be batched that we don't necessarily think of as able to be batched. But it just saves a lot of time. It's something that allows you to get your kitchen messy, you know, once, get all those ingredients out once, get all your canning equipment out once, and so on and so forth. Of course, it's not once, but for me, it's typically going to be like I only have to do it once every 3 months. A perfect example of that would be the homemade pantry mix videos that we've been doing lately. I have to dirty up my kitchen, get myself covered in flour, get all those ingredients out. I only have to do that once every 3 months if I can dedicate and set aside 1 to 2 hours and put up 5 jars of each of the recipe that I'm making. And I'm usually doing 4, 5, or 6 recipes, so I'm putting up 20, 24, you know, jars up on my shelf within 1 to 2 hours of work. And 1 to 2 hours of messiness that I have to clean up. So that's just the batch prepping is like the overarching habit that I would say has been one of the most impactful habits in my life. And I said that I would use canning beans as an example. I think that when we can get a win in something small, that motivation can carry us on to continue getting those small wins. And all of those small wins add up to big wins. And one thing when I was getting into my journey of bulk foods and kind of transforming my kitchen into something where I didn't have to go to the grocery store every few days, and then it turned into I only had to go to the grocery store once a week, and then it turned in, well, now I only have to go to the grocery store once a month, and I am inching closer and closer to the point where I only have to go to the grocery store every 3 months. And that's all started, believe it or not, with dried beans. I knew that dried beans lasted in the pantry for a long time. I knew that it was worth my time to learn how to preserve them because of the money savings. A can of beans at the store, well, they used to be 50 cents a can, but I mean, I haven't bought them in so long, y'all, so I honestly can't give you an accurate price for what canned beans are. It's been so many years since I bought them, but I think they're inching closer to $1 a jar. And the dried beans that you can buy in bulk, you can get 10 pounds, 25 pounds, 50 pounds in bulk. And it is, I mean, it's just literally pennies per serving compared to a can at the store. So I knew that it was going to be worthwhile for our pocketbook for me to purchase and switch to dried beans. But the problem was I didn't, when I'm planning meals and cooking meals, I don't necessarily think far enough ahead of time to soak beans overnight, or I need to prep this 24 hours ahead of time. So I knew I needed to learn how to make beans fast. So the first way that I got into that was cooking the beans in bulk, in batches. I'd spend a whole day cooking up 5 pounds of each of the type of beans that we used, and then I would dehydrate them. I know that sounds weird, but dried beans and dehydrated beans are two totally different things. Dehydrated beans are essentially just add water, let them rehydrate, and then you're ready. You know, dried beans, it takes hours and hours to get them ready for cooking. But then once I learned how to can, I switched from dehydrated beans to canning beans, and now it is even faster and even easier. And the habit that I have been incorporating into my routine, I was about to say monthly routine, but it's not. It's a every 3 months routine. I just did it yesterday, which is kind of one of the things that sparked the idea for this video. Stacy had mentioned about how powerful habits were, and that just got me to thinking about what are the things that I do that I would consider habits, and canning beans in bulk is one of them that impacts our grocery budget the most, that impacts my ability to cook from scratch the most, beyond the big skills of like canning, dehydrating, and gardening. I'd say those three, you know, revolutionize our grocery budget and the way that we live. But I'm talking about more specific examples, and beans would be one of those. So yesterday, you know, at 8 a.m., right when I was prepping breakfast, right after I had prepped breakfast for the kids, before we jumped into homeschool, I went ahead and got my first pressure canner pot going of beans. And I would just go ahead and get like, my canner holds 7 pints, I believe, or 8 pints if I use the regular mouth. So I got out enough beans to make a canner load for each of the type of beans that we go through the most, which for us is black beans, pinto beans, and northern beans. And the pressure canner just runs without me. All I have to do is load it, and then it runs. Mine takes about 2 to 3 hours from coming up to pressure, the processing time, coming down to pressure, unloading. You know, that whole process generally takes 2 to 3 hours. And when one batch was done, I could just load it up with the other batch. And it was just, and at the end of the day, I've got like 21 jars of beans put on my shelf that I paid pennies for. So that's just an example of just getting started with like a small win. And that is, it's a small win because it's just dried beans, it's just canning dried beans, but it's a big win because it is such a significant impact on our grocery budget. But like I said, the umbrella habit above that would be batch prepping, and canning beans in bulk is just one of those examples. Okay, so habit number 2 is kind of similar. It's a batch prepping method, but more specifically, it's baking bread once a month. So when I started baking bread, I did it on demand. Just whenever we needed bread, I would bake some. And I found that I got to the point where I was no longer cooking bread because it disrupted my schedule so much. I have such a easily distracted brain where if I have to do multiple things at one time, it's like my brain's like, nope, not doing it. So I would just find that if I was needing to homeschool and I was doing a reading lesson and then switching to my older kid and helping with his math lesson and mopping the floors and vacuuming the living room, the bread would just get thrown off the table because it wasn't a necessity like homeschooling was or a clean house was. So I've just found myself not doing it. So I tried to switch to a once a week thing, and I found that it just wasn't enough time in between days for me to feel like it was a worthwhile investment to where I didn't have to do that task again so soon. So then I switched to a once a month bread making, and that has just been the winner for us. Making our own breads, whether it be a sandwich loaf, pizza crust, dinner rolls, bagels, flatbreads, cinnamon rolls, like our baked goods, all of those things, making those homemade, they add up to significant savings in your grocery budget. So being able to make those things homemade is one habit. But then, like I said earlier, of getting all of those ingredients, you know, everything that I just listed, all of those bread type ingredients that I just listed, they all share very similar ingredients. So I'm getting all of those things out at the same time. I'm heating up my oven, you know, once, going through all the different recipes in one day, and just getting it all done. And then I don't have to think about that task or dedicate brain space to remembering when and timing, and I don't have to step away from other important tasks to do it. I only have to do that once a month. So baking bread in batches once a month is something that has been fantastic for our family. And I'm now in a transition phase of making it all sourdough. So it used to just be regular, you know, flour, yeast bread, and now I'm switching all of those things to sourdough, but I'm still working on my once monthly sourdough routine. I'm still trying to nail that down, and I hope to bring that to y'all whenever I get that nailed down. But just once a month baking bread is fantastic. I think it gives a lot of bang for your buck. I know it does for me. Okay, so habit number 3 is once monthly meal planning. You might be sensing a theme here of once a month. But again, that just goes with my brain not being able to juggle a whole lot of things at one time. Overwhelm sets in quickly for me when I have to remember a whole bunch of things at one time or address issues at one time. If I can possibly streamline and focus on one thing at a time, that's when I'm most effective. And talking with people in real life, friends, but also in forums online, like in Facebook groups, it seems to be a common thing with a lot of people. Not everybody, but it seems to like a lot of people benefit in that same type of way of being able to focus on one thing at a time. So once monthly grocery meal planning and once monthly grocery shopping has hands down absolutely been one of the biggest blessings for me, for my brain, and I think for my family and for our budget, because we're staying out of the grocery stores. We're eliminating impulse buys. Everything is, strategic. It's bought for a reason. We're not picking up a bunch of things that we don't need. And so it saves money that way too. But also when you're planning your meals ahead a month in advance, you're not coming up at 5 p.m. not knowing what to cook and then having to call your husband or stop by fast food on the way home from work or picking up some pizzas, which we still do every now and then. That's just real life. But we have been able to cut down on that significantly with once monthly meal planning. If that sounds intimidating to you, I totally get it. It is a process to transition into that. But if you are interested, I just want to encourage you that it is not as hard as it seems. We do have a video, I think it was 4 tips to get started meal planning, so I'll link that in the description box below. But if you really want step-by-step guidance along with printables that you can print out and laminate and write on and meal plan on, I highly recommend checking out our book, Food Prep Guide. I will link that down in the description box below. We have an entire chapter dedicated to meal planning, and if you've been with us for a while, you know that I am all about streamlining and simplifying and we're doing work in batches. So the method of meal planning that we teach in Food Prep Guide follows all of those. It pairs nicely with those things. So if your brain works like that, check out that book in the description box below. It has a meal plan, monthly meal plan calendar as well. If you already know how to meal plan and you would just like a monthly meal plan calendar that has your theme days already built in, that you can laminate and put on your fridge, we have that available as well, just as a quick little printable. I'll link that in the description box below as well. Habit number 4 is a homemaking hour, a daily homemaking hour. And for me, this happens first thing in the morning, right after breakfast, usually either before school starts or right after we do our zone cleaning time, or when I have 3 children, so maybe like 2 children are younger and they get done with school a little bit earlier than my oldest child. And a lot of times that homemaking hour will fit in between of when I'm done with my 2 youngers and the oldest is still waiting for me to check his work. I can work in that homemaking hour during that time. And during that homemaking hour, I just mean I do something to move forward, to move my family forward towards our goal of that simpler, slower living, not as much dependence on the grocery store, producing our food, preserving our food, cooking from scratch. So it could be the time that I do my bread baking. It could be the time that I do my canning the beans. It could be the time that I make my pantry mixes. It could be the time that I do my inventory, my household inventory, or the time that I do a seal check and rotate my canned goods. It's just a homemaking hour for me in the morning. It just gives me a time block of, okay, this is the only thing I need to focus on during this time. I have a whole lot of other important things to get to during the day, but for this 1 hour, I'm going to make progress towards my goal here. And just being able to do little bits of tasks that relate to homemaking and moving us forward towards those slower living, simpler living, like a self-sufficiency lifestyle type thing, has made sure that it just doesn't get pushed off to the side, that I'm intentional about making progress toward that. So a homemaking hour, of course that can be done any time of the day. I know if you work for full time, doing it in the morning might not work for you. Maybe it's a Sunday after church thing. Maybe it's a Saturday afternoon thing. Maybe it's a stay up late one night after everybody's in bed and get it done. But I highly recommend trying that and incorporating that if that is something that is possible to work into your schedule. Okay, habit number 5 is note-taking. I had a hard time thinking about what word to put here. I was going to say journaling, But I don't really think it's so much journaling. When I think of journaling, I think of like reflection and putting thoughts on paper in more of a reflection, like scrapbook, like looking back on memories type style. And I don't think that really encompasses what I do and the habit that I want to communicate to you. And I think more of note taking is kind of more of what I'm thinking. And what I mean by that is a lot of times when we are juggling a lot of things, it can be hard to remember what you did towards a certain task. So for instance, planting potatoes. I just planted potatoes 3 weeks ago, but I can't tell you the very date that I planted them because I forgot to write it down. And so now my harvest date is more of a guess, and which is fine. I mean, I know the signs to look for. We have videos on the signs to look for of when your potatoes are ready to harvest, and I have some experience under my belt to know when they're ready, but still just, I should have just taken the 5 seconds to write that down in my notebook. And it's just little things of writing things down and being able to know that, okay, I don't have to store that information in my brain anymore. And it's on paper, it's safe, it's not going to get forgotten. And I can open up that brain space and use it for something else. And it's not just gardening either. It's inside the kitchen too. It's inventory. It's how much flour do we have left. It's, you know, just taking notes about when I do a new project, what worked, what didn't work, so that when I go back, I can improve on those things that maybe didn't work all that great. For instance, the sourdough routine that I'm making. I've been working on it for like 3 months and I'm still not done, but I am taking diligent notes, and every time I practice making all of our sourdough products one time, once a month, I'm getting better and better at it, and I'm getting closer and closer to our goal of making all of our sourdough breads, sourdough rolls, sourdough pizza dough, sourdough, uh, what am I missing? A big one I'm missing. I don't know. I can't think about it right now. But I'm making progress because I am taking those notes and using those notes to do better next time. I hope that makes sense, and I hope I'm not rambling, but y'all probably heard me talk about the Sprout to Supper planner that we did. The Sprout to Supper planner was something that we created. It was something that I made for myself a couple years ago, just to help me keep track of all the things that we've talked about: gardening and meal planning and food inventory and dates and when things need to go into the ground, and recipes and canning, all the canning things, inventory, canning logs, dehydrating logs. And when we did the Sprout to Supper course, which, and just in case you don't know, it is a self-paced online course that we put together to walk you through the entire process of taking something and putting it in the seed, putting it in the ground, growing it, harvesting it, preserving it, cooking with it, meal planning, preserving it, taking you basically from seed to table and trying to give you systems that streamline every stage of that process. Well, while we were building that course, we went ahead and I made the planner that I created for myself, and we designed it so that we could give that to course students as part of the course. And if you are interested in that, I will link that in the description box below. But we also thought that having the planner alone as a standalone resource for people who already know how to do all those things, maybe you are a very experienced gardener, maybe you are really experienced in homemaking and homesteading, but you need those systems. You just need a written system to help you keep track of it all, to eliminate overwhelm by taking that information out of your brain, putting it on paper, making sure it's safe, it's not going to be forgotten, you don't have to worry about it. We made that standalone planner for that type of person, for you, if that's you, and that will be linked in the description box below as well. This is mine. One thing to note is it is a printable planner. It doesn't come in this binder. It's not something that's going to be shipped to you. This was, I think, $10 on Amazon. I just love this notebook. It's just beautiful. It's just an A5 planner. You can get these at Walmart. They're usually run $10 to $15. But the Sprout to Supper planner is printable, and you can put it in whatever format that you want. We do have 8.5 by 11 if you want a spiral notebook as well, instead of an A5 if you prefer. But all of those links will be down in the description box. But just note-taking, being diligent in my note-taking, which I just mentioned, I forgot to write down my potatoes. But for the most part, I've been doing a pretty good job of keeping track of things. And it just, the amount of overwhelm that writing something down the amount of overwhelm that eliminates is priceless to me. When I have to store too much information in my brain, I get bogged down, and I always feel like I'm going to drop a ball and something catastrophic is going to happen. It's totally not, but that's how my brain goes. I think I'm going to forget something big, and it's going to be this big deal. But if I write it down, I know it's in a safe space, and I no longer have to juggle 100 thoughts. I can just think about 2 or 3 thoughts and come back to those later. And I know that they're stored in a safe place and organized in a format where when I'm ready to address meal planning, or I'm ready to can those pickles, or I'm ready to sow my next succession date of lettuce, I can go in here and pick up where I left off and know what to do without having to remember it all, because I know I won't remember it all. And I think there's probably a lot of people out there who struggle with remembering it all too. So if that's you, Sprout Discover Planner will be linked in the description box below. But note taking, even if it's just a simple spiral notebook or just some printer paper, little notebook from the Dollar Tree, just writing things down, writing your processes down, taking notes about different things that you're cooking, that you're trying, the way that you did inventory, what worked, what didn't work. I think that is the key to refining and building a plan that gets better and better year after year, because you're improving on it instead of repeating things that you forgot you did already or that didn't work. So note taking, I hope that makes sense. Okay, y'all. I hope this video is helpful to you. If you're interested in this type of content, please let us know in the description box below. I've got a few more ideas for just some heart-to-heart chats that might help you glean some ideas and inspiration, but I don't want to bring those to you if it's something that would just be boring and off topic and all that. So let us know in the description box below, or excuse me, in the comment box below, if this is something that's helpful to you. Okay, y'all. We'll see you next time. Bye.